Good evening, everyone. My name is Dave Devine. I have the honor of being the president of the DAC, and on behalf of all of our members, I'd like to extend a very warm welcome to all of you on behalf of the #1 athletic club in the United States, and welcome you to the 5th AAU Gussie Crawford Lifetime Achievement Award. I'd like to begin by thanking our valued DAC staff for the wonderful dinner. I hope that you enjoyed it as much as I did. And it was also a great pleasure to reconnect with our friends from the AAU. We are delighted to have the great Carl Lewis as our keynote speaker. I've had the pleasure of sharing dinner with Carl, and I know he's going to be just great to listen to. It's been great for dinner. And we're also joined by Detroit's own Rhonda Walker, the local news anchor at WDIV, who is tonight's MC. Welcome, Rhonda. And we gather tonight to celebrate the great accomplishments of Barry Sanders as we honor him as the winner of this year's AAU Gussie Crawford Lifetime Achievement Award. An event like this doesn't come up without sponsors, and I'd like to take a minute to thank all of our great sponsors without whom this event would not have been possible. Our presenting sponsor is Meyer. The other sponsors include Ally Financial, the AAU of Michigan, Ideal Group, SG Cares, and the James Group. Thank you all very much for your support. I'd also like to thank the hardworking committee from the joint AAU and DAC group, from the AAU, Pam Marshall and Rachel D'Orzio, and from the DAC, Duran Sanders, Mackenzie Haas, Rob Barr, Brian Fitzgibbon, Jack Brushewitz, and Kristen Ritter. Thank you all for all your work. And a special thank you to Rusty Buchanan and all the AAU officers for making the trip to Detroit. Rusty came from warm Florida to join us, so Rusty, thank you, and for everybody else. So the DAC and the AAU have a long history. This history started in 1888 when the DAC hosted AAU's first track and field competition. I was not at that, despite what some people may say, but we do have a video to share the highlights of our shared tradition of amateur athletics.
The Detroit Athletic Club has enjoyed a history of accolades within the walls of this clubhouse, where we are honored to host tonight's presentation of the Gussie Crawford Lifetime Achievement Award. Athletics is the center of our name and has been at the very heart of the DAC going back to its founding in 1887. Soon after the club's birth, the nation's governing body for amateur sports, your very own AAU, rose from the backyard of the DAC, thanks in part to the initiative and passion of the club's leadership. Tonight, more than 130 years later, we welcome our guests from the AAU to the city where your story began. That original DAC clubhouse and grounds on Woodward Avenue hosted elite amateur club teams in basketball, football, track and field, and a two-time national champion in baseball, the DAC Deltas. A DAC member was the first human to break 10 seconds in the 100-yard dash. A walk through our clubhouse is also a journey back in time to an era when athletics played a big part in what it meant to be a member of the DAC. On the third floor of the clubhouse, you'll find a trophy case that is one of several Olympic gold medals that our club can proudly associate with. Up the stairs to the fourth floor, you'll find the pool where world records were broken. Over the years, many world-class swimmers have practiced and competed here, while others of more modest achievement make memories through lifelong friendships in the pool. And that rumbling sound coming from the basement of the clubhouse, it's our bowling center. Bowling is so much a part of the athletic fabric of the DAC that members were rolling strikes before bowling even had a governing body. And when professional sports began to rise in the national consciousness, DAC members were at the forefront of creating the pro sports landscape that Michigan enjoys today. In the 1920s, DAC members bought the Victoria Cougars and moved them to Detroit, where they were renamed the Red Wings. And it was the Red Wings who renamed Detroit Hockey Town. Another contingent of DAC members bought and relocated the Portsmouth, Ohio Spartans to the Motor City. By 1935, barely a handful of years after joining the fledgling National Football League, that team, now the Detroit Lions, brought the city its first pro football championship. 3 DAC members were prominent in establishing the Detroit Tigers, and in fact, every owner of the Tigers, except 2, has been a DAC member. The influence of these members extended beyond sports and into the community. The club's membership rolls in the early 1900s read like a who's who of the emerging juggernaut that was the auto industry. And during World War II, DAC members were integral to the transformation of Detroit's industrial might into what became known as the arsenal of democracy. Yet the DAC remains committed to athletics for everyone, and that passion can be seen in today's increasingly diverse membership. They are not merely spectators, but participants from many walks of life. Our racket courts have hosted the top women professional squash players in the world. We've hosted national basketball championships that have brought together squads from top private clubs in the country. Our gym annually plays host to top boxers from our nation's service academies. In recent years, our club's Detroit Cycling Championship has attracted many of the nation's top bicycle riders. Detroit Athletic Club members also give back to our sports-minded community. Member-driven charity programs provide bicycles to children through Fit Kids 360 and introduce children to the fast-paced sport of squash through Racket Up Detroit. And the club's most iconic organization, the Beavers, has hosted some of the very best from the world of athletics for an afternoon of good food and better conversation. Tom Izzo, Jim Harbaugh, Isaiah Thomas, they're among the latest to speak with candor and humor to DAC members because they know our members appreciate and embrace sports in their lives. The DAC is honored to welcome you into our clubhouse, built by legendary architect Albert Kahn. It is grand. Yes, it is a museum. It's an art gallery, but it is also an arena where athletics continues to remain central to our club's passion as it does to yours. Welcome to our club, and thank you for the privilege of your company.
Great video. It's now my pleasure to introduce Rhonda Walker, the local morning news anchor for WDIV and founder of the Rhonda Walker Foundation, which helps empower inner-city teen girls. Rhonda?
Thank you. Let's give another round of applause to our president of this amazing place. It is so great to see you all here in person. I should mention we're live streaming as well, so just so you know, there's a camera watching us live. I am honored to be here to serve as your MC. I'm such a fan of athletics and sports and competition, and so it's exciting, honestly, to learn about this 134-year-old history that I honestly didn't know it dated back to that. In fact, I asked Jack at the table, I'm like, it says 1888 in my script. Is that a typo? So it's just incredible. Welcome to the Amateur Athletic Union Gussie Crawford Lifetime Achievement Award Celebration. Thank you all so much for being here. Round of applause to all of you. So I was introduced when I arrived to a couple of track athletes in high school as a former track star. And I cracked up because I thought, wow, if they only knew my history. We have Carl Lewis here. My dad ran track. My brother ran track. My sister ran track. I have 2 other siblings. They were incredible track athletes that created, had records, and we're in the newspaper and all these great things. So, of course, I thought I was going to be fast too, coming from this fast family. And so I went out for track in the 7th grade, and so they told me I was going to be in the JV heat. Like, I wasn't fast enough for like the fastest heat, so it was like the second heat, and there was only 3 of us left to race in that, and I came in last. So I thought, okay, I'm not good at this. Let me find something else. So I always loved sports, and so I became a cheerleader. Does AAU have cheerleading? But I like all the sports, and I know about them. I am very adept. I understand them. I understand the rules and everything, but competitive athletics just wasn't in me. I seemed to run slower when it counted, but I admire those that handle that pressure and can perform at the highest level. And so it is always an honor to be among athletes and those that support athletics, because it has definitely been a part of my life, my entire life. I just, unfortunately, was not good enough to actually compete, and I'm okay with that. It's a lot of pressure. So this year's event is special because we are honoring one of our local sports legends that we're still trying to process, retired so early and wished for so many years that he would play just one more game. But we are honoring Barry Sanders tonight. And I am also really looking forward to hearing from Carl Lewis, who is here in our presence tonight, 9-time Olympic gold medalist, 1-time Olympic silver medalist, and 10 world championship medals. He is our keynote speaker today. So we are so excited that you're here, that you've taken so much time with all of us here and just interacted with us. There were many people, including myself, that are just such huge fans that have cheered you on and, been so excited to watch your track career and beyond. And so it's so exciting that you're here in Detroit among us. Since its inception in 1888, 134 years ago, the AAU set a standard for amateur sports in the United States, continuing to raise the bar and promote and develop amateur sports and athletes and also physical fitness programs. Today, the AAU has nearly 700,000 members and 150,000 volunteers across 41 sports in 55 districts in the United States. This is quite an incredible organization for those of you that work with it. And we are here to celebrate another honoree of this prestigious award, a trailblazer in sports whose accomplishments have significantly impacted the world of sports and the lives of so many. At this time, I would like to invite Jennings Rusty Buchanan, our president and CEO of the Amateur Athletic Union, to come to the podium with a greeting. Nice to meet you.
I like getting applause from not having to do anything, so thank you for that. It is a privilege and a pleasure to be here tonight, and I've got to first of all say, Detroit Athletic Club, you guys are amazing. Thank you for the hospitality. Thank you for all the hard work. Thank you for being able to think outside the box, make things happen, and all the effort that you've put into this award. We really, really appreciate it. I'd also like to thank the staff. You mentioned the folks that have worked on it. I know we've got Rachel and Pam here somewhere. I saw you guys. Just waved to everybody. And our AAU family. We've got Michigan AAU folks. We got all of the national officers are here today. Every single national officer we've got. So if you guys would stand up, let me just recognize you. Joe, Cindy, if you guys are around somewhere, just wave your hand. Where's our Michigan AAU people? So thank you guys for all that you've done to get us to this point. It wouldn't be fair to go any further without saying we're missing a couple of people in this room. People that were in the room 2 years ago when we were here. And they're the people that really made this event possible. Dr. Gowdy, who had a vision. And his vision was to create an award that would recognize outstanding performance, that would recognize the give back to a community, that would recognize accomplishments, not just in the athletic world, but in society. And who better than to name that award for than the first ever woman president of the AAU, Gussie Crawford. We miss both of them tonight, and we think about them almost daily. So what I'd like to do is recognize Gussie's family, who's joined us here tonight. Thank you guys for coming. Thank you guys for sharing this moment. And most importantly, thank you guys for sharing Gussie with us. I said a few words last week when we were up there with the family. And those words ring so true in that in life, the only things you can really hope for is that you feel like you've touched people's lives and made a difference. Well, when you look at Gussie Crawford, just in her role as the president, the 500,000 kids whose lives were influenced by decisions she made, she touched the lives and made a difference. The only other thing you hope for in life is that you leave a legacy. Well, this legacy is being honored here tonight. Gussie Crawford checked both those boxes. So I was sharing with some of the folks when we got back from the service on what I said. And they said, yes, she did. She touched all those people. But look at the leadership of the AAU today. And I would bet you without doubt, you speak to any person in leadership within the AAU, and they'll find a reason to reference Gussie Crawford and those things she has done and continues to do today through those of us who carry on her legacy. We've got a brief video I'd like you to watch about Gussie Crawford. Gussie Crawford's an icon. She's a legend. Gussie was the first woman president of the AAU. So to name the award after this legendary pioneer for women's rights in the sports world kind of sums up what the sense of the award really is. I think the real soul of the award is to recognize that person that may not have gotten the recognition back when they were prominent as an athlete. This really recognizes what the recipient has done outside of sport to benefit his community, to benefit society, to benefit all of us, maybe the sport as a whole, but really the award focuses on the contributions that this person has made to make this a better place.
The other thing about Gussie is she's one of the most genuinely kind and loving people you'll ever meet. And this girl right here, I couldn't think of a better person for this award to be named after than Gussie.
I've got to credit our past president, Dr. Roger Gowdy. Roger also was a visionary. Roger liked to say he spent 42 years in public education, and that's true. But Roger also spent a lifetime dedicated to the AAU. And I think Gussie was an inspiration to Roger. Roger saw her and what she had done, and he'd like to follow in those footsteps. And very fitting, in 2016, Roger said, let's create an award.
You know, it's a shame that we have athletes that over the years have not won the Sullivan Award. The Sullivan Award, as you know, is the kind of the pinnacle of award for the AAU. It's considered the Oscar of amateur sports. We recognize the amateur athlete of the year in all sports. So I thought, you know, there's been some really good athletes that we've missed over the years. That's why I came up with the concept of the Gussie Award. And I thought, what better person than Gussie Crawford, the only female president in a 132-year history of the Amateur Athletic Union. What better person to name it after than Gussie? So I called Gussie up and told her the concept. And I've got Gussie, being humble as she is, that wanted an award named after her. And I said, Gussie, there's no better person to name this after than you. So it ended up being called the Gussie Crawford Lifetime Achievement Award.
It's a testament to the changes of growth, and it's a testament to the changes of progress that I'm able to stand here tonight and accept this award on behalf of my grandfather. His contribution not just on the athletic field, but off to this country, was incredible. And it is really with a great sense of pride that our family, that his legacy, 81 years later, is still relevant.
Well, when we look back at the over 100-year history of the AAU, there are a lot of athletes that we felt deserved recognition. Babe Dietrich, and that's one that pops into my head looking at some of that stuff today from what she had accomplished. And here again, another female that was just really, really out front for her time. Then you go back and look at Muhammad Ali, some of the contributions that he had made in societies. Gussie truly was a leader. And she was also a visionary. Gussie had an idea of what things could be. And if you go back and you look at Gussie's history, Gussie was an athlete, a very good athlete, but she got into AAU really not from herself, but really more from her kids. When her kids began to compete, Gussie got involved at that point. And here again, for those factors I think that make amateurism stand out is opportunity for kids to participate in sport. And Gussie saw that and developed those opportunities within her own family and carried that over for, gosh, almost a 50-year career.
So everybody had a Jesse Owens story. And it went to the fact of how humble he was. He never got through a meal without somebody coming and say, Mr. Owens, can I take a picture? Mr. Owens, can I have an autograph? Mr. Owens, can I tell you a story? And for me, for the athletes of today, I think it's important that they hear those stories and that they understand the importance and the impact that they have, not just on their sports and their communities, but on this world.
The big difference is we're not recognizing athletic accomplishments, we're recognizing athletes for the accomplishments and the differences that they have made in society as a whole.
What a wonderful lady, and also want to once again acknowledge the Crawford family for being here tonight. Thank you so much for your loved ones' contribution to this evening and to sports and to youth sports, and what a wonderful way to remember her for many, many years to come. What a legacy that she has left with us. Last night, we celebrated the conclusion of the 2022 Winter Olympics and honored extraordinary athletic performances over a couple of weeks. But prior to the U.S. Olympic Committee, it was the AAU, the American Athletic Union, that was the governing body for the United States. I learned that fun fact today. AAU has been raising champions, as we have been talking about, for more than a century. And we have an extraordinary athlete and champion among us this evening. We are lucky to be in this rare air tonight with this man. As I mentioned before, I'll share a little bit more of his incredible accomplishments, but a 9-time Olympic gold medalist, incredible, an Olympic silver medal to add to that, 10 world championship medals, including 8 gold. His career spanned from 1979 to 1996. One of only 6 Olympic athletes who won a gold medal in the same individual event in 4 consecutive Olympic Games. It's remarkable. Voted World Athlete of the Century by the International Association of Athletics Federations, and Sportsman of the Century by the International Olympic Committee. Olympian of the Century by Sports Illustrated, and, oh, by the way, Athlete of the Year by Track and Field in 1982, 83, and 84. He is legendary, and he is here among us. We will have an opportunity following his keynote address to ask a few questions. So if you have always wanted to be in the presence of Carl Lewis and didn't get a chance to in our reception earlier, we will have about 5 minutes available that he's allowed for some Q&A. So feel free to ask questions following this incredible keynote speech from the one and only Carl Lewis.
Thank you. You know, you always want to be able to do this. I'm actually a little nervous. I am, because I'm like these names make me kind of nervous a little bit, because they're all a part of my life somehow. And Ron, I'm just going to tell you something. Girl, I finished last in some races too. So, we've all finished last in some races. You know, my relationship with AAU started, believe it or not, in the late 1940s, early 1950s. My mother was a track athlete in college. She and my father met at Tuskegee Institute. And she made the national teams, went to national championships and those things in those days, one of the best hurdlers in the world when she was in college. Most of which I didn't find out until we started finding things in the attic in the late 1960s, early 1970s. She never told us. We used to see her, I found her shoes one time. My sister Carol and I found medals, and we started having our own track meets and using them, and that's when, you know, we got in trouble for that. But what was interesting is why it's such an honor to be here for Gussie, because my mother ran track, you know, graduated from college like they did in those days, got her degree, became a teacher, and she started coaching, just coaching girls. And she couldn't coach boys in those days, they wouldn't allow that. But she was always so frustrated about the fact that girls didn't have an opportunity, the same opportunity. So when she went to high school, we moved to New Jersey, she went to our high school there, they would not have girls track and field. So she would take girls out and help them, but they wouldn't have girls track and field. So in 1968, she had an idea. Why don't I start a girls program? And the first year, there are two sides to the story. One is my dad's side, and the other is her story. She decided she wanted to start a club for girls and said, let's go down and register a club and start it ourselves. My father said, your mother was so inspired by these young women. I decided to say, why don't we go down and start a club for girls? You be the judge. So, because of people like Gussie, who's decided, I want to inspire people, I want to take something in my life. We don't really always know what inspired them to be that person that said, I want to do that, ultimately affecting people that they'll never meet, is really an inspiration for all of us. And it tells us that it doesn't really matter where you come from, and I know there are challenges we all have, but we can all give a chance to make a difference. To think about it is your relevance comes from what you leave, not always what you do. And so Mama was really relevant. And I think that's just a beautiful thing to be here. And I'm such an honor, and I'm so happy to have been able to meet her and be in her spirit. Because now the group of athletes that have been honored and will be honored in the future are just incredible. That's why I'm kind of nervous. I mean, we're talking about Jim Thorpe. And Jim Thorpe was actually won an Olympic gold medal. And he was told as he's getting his medal, son, you're the world's greatest athlete. Now, we kind of tweet that all the time, and this little GOAT thing, I'm kind of over it. Because like everyone's a GOAT every week. Really, and it's like, seriously, you know, I want to put a burner account up so I can just kind of blast people on that. Well, to older people, that's like a fake account. Actually, that's what a kid told me, that's how I figured it out. But think about that. You know, someone who was a native background from a small Oklahoma, and they became the greatest athlete in the world, and the AAU provided that opportunity. Muhammad Ali, here's a guy that got it from day one, how to market and talk. But you know what was the core to him? He loved people and he loved children. And I will give a quick story about that, because I knew Muhammad Ali for years. But one time in the early 2000s, someone asked me, Muhammad Ali, and some others to go do an event, and they got a private plane, and we're going there. We were meeting with Michael Phelps. So we got on this plane, and already his disease was advanced, so he didn't talk a lot. But we got on this plane with my mother came and her friend at the time, and he didn't communicate a lot, but what he did, he sat there just for them and just did a little doodle and gave it to them. Didn't know them, but he found a way to communicate. And that's what he did to millions of people around the world, and that's why he's so special, because it wasn't really the fighting. We got it, winning, losing, coming back, but it was his heart and his love for humanity and people, and he stood up for what he believed in and inspired. But that all happened because he had a chance through AAU. Jesse Owens, if it wasn't for AAU, I would never have accomplished anything, because I started out because my mother started this club, and then boys joined the second year. And the reason we joined is because they were saying, we want to be a part of it, we want to be a part of it. And that first year when my parents started that club, my sister and I were 6 and 7, and they were public school teachers. They're like, we're not paying for a babysitter, come to practice. Well, what do you do when you go to practice? And you have a few girls that are running, right, on the track. You go to the stadium, and what's there that could occupy kids? Well, a long jump pit. So they said, you know what? Go play like it's the beach. Now, I'm sorry, I was in New Jersey. They said the shore. So actually, my first experience involved in track and field was making sandcastles at 7 years old in the long jump pit. And Carol and I went on to make the Olympic team in the long jump. But Jesse Owens, because of that start, I was able to meet Jesse Owens. Now, I say meet him because I was like 14, so he didn't meet me. I was able to meet him, and he handed me a medal at an AAU-sponsored event. And then I was able to hear him that night, listen to him talk. Well, of course, there were hundreds of kids there and people there, and he spoke around the world many a times, but this is the only time he actually only spoke to me. Those people were just there in the background. And I was so moved at 14 by the way he talked. I still remember the inflection and the sound of his voice, and how he talked about being in Germany and Hitler and all of this thing. And it moved me so much that I ran home and went to my Art Link letter dictionaries, remember those? And looked up Jesse Owens and looked up Hitler and looked up Germany. And because of that, it gave me this tremendous quest for history. And I said, I wanted to learn history, and it spread out more than that. And I used to watch documentaries about sports and everything. So without that one little speech, my whole thought of history. And then my parents, coming up through the civil rights movement, taught me, and it enabled me to broaden my horizons. So when I came into track and field, I had an idea. I want to make us like everyone else. I want our sport to broaden and be professional like everyone else. So we sought out those things, change. And then a few years later, as a college sophomore, I learned a great story, and Jesse's a part of that story. Well, I had just recently set the world record. I'm 19 years old in a long jump indoors at our conference meet. And in those days, the national championships was in Cobo Hall here in Detroit every single year. So I go there, and I'm the favorite, and I said, I want to try to run the 60, and no one had done that in years. And you know, those days, you didn't really know a lot of stuff until it happened, because there's no internet, you know. Matter of fact, we didn't have call waiting. Anybody young here? And let's not even get into, obviously, computers and phones. So so I get to the meet, and I'm running the 60, and I'm the favorite in the long jump because I'm the world record holder, and I'm this kid. So I go there, and I'll get ready to do this long jump. And so I go down on the first jump, and I jump, and I'm in the lead. The second jump, I jump, and I'm in the lead. And then all of a sudden, my coach walks down. You know, anyone knows Cobo Hall, you walk down the stairs, you go to the edge, he says, come over here. And he said, son, apparently you have all this figured out. And he turned around and he walked all the way up to the top of the stadium. And I'm just like sitting there saying, that's it. So of course, you know, I can look back now that I'm a little older. But at the time I was like, how dare him sit and do that to me? I'm winning, how dare him? And so I went down the next jump, and I missed the world record by 1/4 of an inch. And so I turned and I looked at him, and he came back in, but he stood at the very top of the stage and didn't go down. And I still had the 60 final. I won the 60. And so at the end, they were like, ladies and gentlemen, that was the first person to have that double since Jesse Owens. And that was the first time my name was in the same like sentence. And it took me a little time to kind of calm down and understand what the message was. The message wasn't there to win. It's always to do your absolute best. So you don't need me just to win here. You need me to be your absolute best. And it was a tremendous message. And forever, from that point on, I was inspired by the spirit of Jesse Owens. And you know, that spirit comes back to our honoree today, Barry Sanders. I was a big fan. I've met Barry a few times, a big fan of his playing. Because you know what? He did things that people didn't do. And how often do you see a player not just become great, but just leave you in awe saying, seriously, he did that? That was the great thing about it. And what happened is that you only make those moves and you only turn around and go back the other way because you actually think you can do it. Most people will just put their head down and run into the hole. Doesn't it drive you crazy sometimes when you see when they get the ball and there's a line sitting there? So why did he run into that line? Run around the end. Well, the thing is about it, Barry ran around the end because he believed he could make it. And I think that's what get it to me, the commitment, the lack of fear, the self-control. And self-control isn't just the way you perform because you have to be a little bit out of control to have that. You know, you really never accomplish anything unless you try. And you can't have fear if you want to be the best you can absolutely be. You know, I tell the kids all the time that I won 4 gold medals in 1 Olympics, but I tried 4 times. And no one says, boy, it was great you got it that one time. They remember what you actually accomplished. And you never accomplish anything unless you try it. And that's what I look at Barry. And then guess what? At the end, he moved on his own terms. It was all about his performance, what he could give, and what he wanted to leave. And that was a history and a career of excellence. So I'm just honored to be a part of this tremendous organization, AAU, because if I had never met the AAU, you wouldn't know me. And you know what, honestly, I have no idea what I'd be doing. You know, so thanks, because I'd have to figure it out. So thank you being back in Detroit. The relationships are long and deep. History of what we do is important. And the fact that that particular day, to this day, is still the NCAA record at that meet. And so it's kind of embarrassing that I'm coaching. I go there, they announce that I'm still the record holder. I'm like gray-haired and, you know, all that kind of stuff. It's like, seriously? You did turn around and go, this old guy still has it? I'm like, break it, somebody, please. But I guess the young people have something to look for, and I still have something to learn from. Because every day I go back there and I hear that name and I see it in that book, I go back to that moment. And it inspires me to go back and be the exact same coach to those kids that Tom Tellez was to me. And that's helping you become the person you can be, focusing on excellence, and creating the best opportunity you have. And without the AAU, none of us would have had that chance. So I want to congratulate Barry. Thank you for having me. And also, this is an amazing facility. I really feel happy being here. And more so than that, I think they're happy to have me here because of the view out of my room is straight down home plate. So I think they said, well, we'd like it here. We wanted to come back. So they gave me the room that you're going to want to come back. You know. So thank you so much for your contribution, for your leadership, for your opportunity. We're talking about 1880s. And actually, if I probably mentioned that year, I think my students would probably go and say, you know, what was it like? You know, but the reality is that in 100 years from now, we're going to be saying 2021. And the AAU will still be doing it, but in 200 years from now, you know, hundreds of years from now. But the one thing that'll never change, it started right here in Detroit. And so thank you for having us here. This is a wonderful day. And I just want to get on to honoring Barry and everyone else here. Thank you so much for having me. Young lady. All right. No, I'm right here.
Okay. I promised you some Q&A time. There's an extra mic up here. Did you guys need this?
Out there?
I'll ask a question.
Okay, and
because
then
that's what I do.
we ought to get young men like the 10-year-old up here to running around. Everyone else can only do
I know
two.
we have some high school track
Yeah,
athletes
everyone else can only do
too,
2
'cause
questions
I'm
and they're
not
sitting down,
familiar.
okay? Yeah, where are high school athletes?
I know there's 2 right there. They just raised their hands.
Well, come on, you two come up. Come on. Come on, you're going to run the mics. That's what we do.
Well, first I want them to ask their burning question. This
Yeah,
is it.
because one of the events, come on. One of the advantages of young people is y'all get to do everything now. Come on.
Yeah, you can walk
Here,
up to
no.
anybody. You can ask any question.
Yep, you can run the mics around. You ask your.
to the stage. I thought they were gonna come to the front.
Wait, hold on. So, okay,
What's your name? Where do you run track, and what's your sport?
My name is my name is Braden Forge, and I run for Michigan Racers Club. I run the 260.
yeah, he knows. Are you a little nervous?
Yes.
Okay. So here's what helps you. So I was told, like a freshman year, I went to speech class, and they said, if you're really nervous, don't look at like the top of their heads. Don't look at the top of my head because I'm still trying to get the hair back. So.
Wait, let me.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I want to ask you.
Your show.
I'm sorry, and we're gonna have Fletcher introduce himself. Oh, take the mic. No, I'm just kidding. You take it.
My name is Fletcher Hoven. I do have a question for you. As a track athlete, if you're ever feeling down and need the inspiration, where do you go to think of how to be better, to know better? You know what I mean? Find the inspiration.
Yeah, great question. So what I do is that I always tell young people to focus on what you can control. So what happens is that we get caught in the P word, potential, not performance. So if you go into a performance, you're a sprinter, right? So you go, oh, it was a terrible race today. You can just say it was a bad race. Oh, I didn't do this, I didn't do that. Or you could say, what was my mistake? Am I giving 100%? And was I prepared? And so you can't always be prepared because things happen. But if you go back and say, well, I'm not worried about the time today, this mistake in the start. So Monday, I'm going to work on that mistake because I can control that. Did I put in the extra time the coach asked me to? I can control that. Did I go to bed on time, or was I on the internet or on the phone last night? I can control that. You see what I'm saying? So what I tell you, focus on what you can control and keep it simple, because if you perform at your best, the time will come second, the place will come second. So like I said earlier, I tried 4 times. I only made it for 4 events 1 time, okay? And so that's, in the Olympics, I was technically 25% of the events I attempted over those years. But each time I said, well, what mistake did you make? What did you do? And that's it. So focus on what you can control, and then that's it. Now, of course, you're going to get the outside people saying, oh, you didn't win, and all of that. None of that really matters, because all this is a process for your entire life. You're young. You have no idea how short a period of time that you are in. You're in the first third, buddy. I'm in the last. Okay, so that's it. So does that make sense? Like when it's a bad race, instead of oh, it was a terrible race, okay, I did not push out of the blocks right. I didn't do the turn right. Now all of a sudden it gives you an inspiration to fix, and now you have something to look forward to. Well, if I fix that, I'll be great next week. It puts it back in your thing.
I'm also a long jumper.
The best event.
Yeah. What do you think is one of the hardest things you had to overcome in long jumping?
Okay, so that's a great, because of course I believe that long jump is the hardest event in track and field, because it is the event that everyone does, which means we are the most genetically predisposed to do it incorrectly. So, because everyone does it forever. So the hardest thing is when you're going down, do you foul a lot? Okay. So you foul a lot for 2 reasons. Number one, because you probably don't work on your approach enough. You think about jumping all the time, but not your approach, right? See, so the approach is 95% of the jump. So that means for every time you jump, you should have 9 approaches. So that's the first thing, to get that consistent. And it's extremely difficult. You have to get whatever your distance is, you have to get that distance and then do it the exact same each time. That's number one. That's the first hard part. Then the second hard part is when you leave the board, every time you get to the board, I'm in his brain already. Every time you get to the board, you feel like, I'm going to fall on my face, right? Maybe. Well, you should. You should feel that, because that's why you do everything in the air. So if you don't feel like the minute you leave the board, I'm going to fall forward, then that means you put your foot out. So make your run consistent and put the foot down. That's it. You will add, if you do those 2 things, whatever your jump is, doesn't matter, you'll add 2 feet That's it.
All right.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Priceless advice. Priceless advice from an Olympian. How amazing is this event tonight? We expect to hear the results of this great advice that you received tonight. That was impressive, guys. Does anyone else have a question? Yes. Do you have a mic back there, or you just want to shout it out? I can't really tell.
I know something.
Oh,
We can probably hear you.
thanks, Phil. Carl, thank you so much for being here and speaking to us. This is just a fantastic event, thanks to the AAU. You were my favorite athlete growing up. I literally, as a child, thought you could fly. So this is so cool to be asking you a question. You talked about excellence in your speech. How have you transitioned in your post-athletics career to always striving for excellence and finding the best way to be your best that day?
Well, first of all, I respect the question with someone with such great judge of character. That's an interesting question, because what happened for me is that and it's the same thing, as a coach. I actually call myself a teacher because I'm teaching a system. But I tell them, how do you connect every facet of your life together? So I started looking at my post-athletic career in the early parts of my career. So I wanted to be a public figure, entertainment, all that stuff. So I worked at a TV station as an intern, radio station. I took speech classes, voice lessons, all these things. So therefore, when I went to the next phase, I was kind of prepared to go there and be the best that I could be. But I was also aware if I felt like I was trying something and doing something and the passion wasn't there, I stopped. But the big thing, I think the one thing that I'm the most proud of, looking back now that I'm older, is in a lot of ways I became my parents. I grew up, they were public school teachers, I was in their school. They had a track club, I was on their team. And so I lived my entire life watching these two people that were in school and then running a program of 200 or 300 kids. In a lot of cases, we didn't have big Christmases because they were doing things. Vacations were track meets, and I know a lot of AAU people understand that. I never went to the Jersey Shore until I was out of high school, in college. I always heard about it, but I didn't know. And I went down there and said, wow, this is all this stuff? I never knew about it because that was our life. So I think the thing for me is always understanding, putting yourself in a place that you can control. And so they taught me to be independent. They're extremely supportive. And then when time came, they said, okay, Coach Tellez has it. They were my coaches all the way up, a part of it through high school. And then 2 years later, I came back, Dad had a two-seater. So I got the message. It was real quick. I'm like, seriously? I'm still in college. So, and I think that's what it was. But the thing is, starting when I was in AAU, I had every facet. I started off, I was a small kid, shy kid, did not have the success. I tried all the events, trying to find something. My younger sister, Carol, was great at everything, and she was a 3-time Olympian, but she had developed a lot faster, incredible athlete to this day. I've never met anyone more competitive than her. So I saw this process of these other, my brother and sister, and my oldest brother was good in track. My brother behind him was a professional soccer player. And I was a scrawny little kid thinking, oh my God, I want to be taller than Mom in 11th grade, And so the lessons that I learned when I was losing all those years are the lessons that drove me later of you can't control your place, you can control your performance. And so they used to tell me these little fibs like I was going to be great one day. And I don't think they knew it, but it didn't matter. The objective was to make me think that I could do something. And so they said, focus on your time. And so I'm getting 7th place saying, what was my time? Yay. And they're like, seriously, you just got 7th place, you're not making the final. So I was back doing my own little thing, trying to learn my technique as a little kid, but getting 6th, 7th, 8th place. And then all of a sudden, in 11th grade, I started to grow. But I've been honing this technique all these years and listening to anything people told me. And then I went from like an average little 10th grader in my community to the #1 state my junior year in high school, and my senior year in high school, I was 5th in the world. So I just grew, but I was preparing for greatness, not knowing that's it. But that only happened because I was inspired to focus on being the best that I could be. And I think that's what's so important about AAU, and it's so important about your message. I read a study a few years ago that said the most successful athlete at the Olympic level in track and field, when they went back to the AAU meets, 15, 16-year-old was 5th place. Wow. It wasn't the winner. So the thing is that I was inadvertently inspired to go on and just be the best that I could be, because I was never going to win. But they said, you're going to be great one day. And I know her fingers were crossed behind her back. But that was it. And I think that's the thing. And so it wasn't something conscious. It was something that was ingrained in me, and watched the inspiration and watched the other things that they did growing up. That's really what it was about. It was about just being indoctrinated into a great thing by two beautiful parents. And by the way, my mother is 92. She's still here and hanging strong. And a few years ago, she doesn't get out to the track meet stuff more, but a few years ago, I took her to practice about 4 years ago. And I had to take her away to go to a restaurant because she was angry because the girls were sitting down in practice. And I'm like, Mother, we got to go. She's like, why is she sitting down in practice? I said, Mother, you're 88 years old. Leave that girl alone. No, we're not. Tell that coach to come over here. So it doesn't go away. And that's really what it is. So I think the biggest thing is excellence is the success that you can attain within yourself. And so often now in society, like I was talking about with the GOAT thing, it's always about what you've achieved instead of who you are. And who you are is that. I told the kids recently, I'm a 90-10 coach. I'm going to put 90% of my energy into the 10% that want to be the best they can be. And I'll put 10% in the rest. Because I hope we can expand that. But that's the reality. You know, it's not just, life is not a text message, and success is not a post. It's actually what you do. And that's what we try to teach.
I'll be brief, but I'm going to put you on the spot. You joked earlier, please break my record. Do elite athletes, world record holders, really want their records broken?
Well, you know what? I always, and I'll keep it brief too, I always say records are borrowed, medals are owned. Medals aren't going anywhere. So, yeah, the whole thing of it is, it's really interesting because obviously most of my records now are old. That meet record is 40 years old. It'll be 41 years old next month. That world record I set 2 weeks before that meet, I actually broke it again, but I've held it for 41 years. So it's like, okay, now I want to see it gone before I'm dead. Okay, so I went past the don't break my record. Now I'm just like, seriously, am I gonna not know who did it? So there's stages of that. I went a few years. I'm like, I don't break my record. Leave my record alone. But now it's like I just really want to know. They'd be talking about, hey, he broke the world record of dead Carl Lewis. No, I want to be here to know who did it.
Carl, thank you for coming to Detroit. It's fantastic to see you.
Thank you.
My father and I were at that meet at Cobo Hall.
Oh, you were there. You remember. Well, thank God you didn't see Coach T.
You jumped up against the wall.
Sorry?
You jumped up against the wall.
Yeah.
And my dad said, oh, my God, he can jump too. It was an unbelievable moment. 2 questions, briefly. First question is, you started to hint at the difference in the athletes today. And I want you to touch on that. What's different about the athletes that you're working with today? And you can get into that. The second question is, team sports have grown in the world. Thank you for bringing professionalism to track and field. What needs to happen to increase professionalism at the track and field level?
Okay. I may have to double back because, that memory here. So the first one, let me see, the professionalism, because that when you talk about money, it just blows my mind. So
what's different about the
different. Okay, here's the deal. Here's my opinion, my humble opinion. I think, athletes change because ultimately, we always say kids are different. Well, it's half them, half us. We're old and they're new. My mother always says, I don't like the kids' music. Mom, she didn't like your music either. Okay, so, but I think one of the things that concerns me is that we're starting, if you look at the age of parents now, they're in their 30s and 40s of high school and college kids. This is the first generation of parents that came through Everybody Wins. Now they're translating that down to their children, and everyone doesn't win, but everyone doesn't lose either. Everyone gets something. And so my big challenge is focus on what you control, like I said, and kids trying to be realistic and honest with them about it. So that's the big challenge. Now, what helps me is I've had success. When I took this job at Houston, I volunteered. So it's not like, it's like, okay, so I'm volunteering here. I'm spending a lot of time, and I'm doing this because I have an opportunity to do it, and I love it. But I really don't have to be here, so let's get it together here, And so I think the honesty helps, but I think that's the biggest challenge, is that we're thinking of sports in a different way, and we're trying to write their own stories. And if it's the biggest thing is what hasn't changed. The science hasn't changed. The work ethic hasn't changed. We know more about diet, nutrition, all that, but still the science hasn't changed. So now we're trying to change the science. A lot of coaches are more interested in just celebrity and not really knowing the science. They're hurting kids. Kids come to us that are taught to do things incorrectly because that person is better on social media. So these are the kind of things, the challenges we have. The thing about what needs to happen to make the sport more professional, the reality is that the structure, the athletes are doing the best they can. The structure at the very top has to change. And we're talking about the federation level. There are changes, and we know that. But I think it starts at the very, very top. The very, very top, the international federation system has to change from just rewarding people for being there to challenging people to get better. And I think all of the and I talk about leagues have changed and evolved, but a lot of sports have just stayed the same, and they're trying to change under here, doing everything they can at the federation level and all of that, and the athletes, but it's still the same at the top. And so I think that until the IAAF changes, there's going to be huge problems and issues, because everything is based on friendships, relationships, and we have to change it and make it about performance. I think, let's just give an example. We have at our international level, there are a certain amount of federations, and they vote for people to be in positions. Well, right now, it's like one vote, one country. Well, we could change and create equity and power in every country by shifting it from just having an automatic vote to earning a vote through performance. And that doesn't mean who gets the most medals. We could do that per capita. Who invests in the athletes the most, who fights for the drug testing programs. Then all of a sudden, a small country like Fiji could get 5 points, and another country may only have 3 that's bigger and wins more medals. So and all of a sudden, countries flip and start saying, now we're incentivized to do great things for athletes, to make sure we fight drug use, to make sure that we put more investment in our kids, in our countries, no matter who we are, to get more influence, instead of just sitting back saying, you pay me for influence, I have to earn that. And I think that within that system, we would see a big change, because then it would switch the focus to the athletes. And then we wouldn't end up in a situation like we had this past Olympics, where Russia should not be in the Olympics at all. Just straight up. We're done. It should be over. They should be out. And if the athletes want to move to other countries, I'd fast track it just to shut Russia down. We're just done with it. It's unfair to what's happening to the Olympic and sports movement. So those are the kind of things. Incentivize the changes at the top. And I think a lot of smaller countries would love for this to happen, and would love to say, well, wow, I could find a way to help the athletes and get more influence at the international level. And then I think we could get more of a professional thing, because right now there's no incentive to change and at that international level, so why would they?
I don't see the mic anymore, so I think we're going to wrap up our Q&A.
I'm off the hook?
You're off.
Wait, Vin.
I feel like we could talk to you all night. Thank you so much for giving us so much of your time tonight, and just your perspective. I mean, I had that burning question about the Olympics in Russia, but I was like, Rhonda, don't do it.
Oh, no.
It's not the time. But thanks for being candid.
Whenever it comes to me, and I say this all the time, I am not a refrigerator. I don't hold things. I'm going to tell it.
Very nice.
Okay?
Let's hear it once again for
Thank
Carl
you so
Lewis.
much. Thank you, thank you.
Thank you so much. Tremendous. We are so honored that you spent so much of your evening with us, answered some of our personal questions, and we're just so insightful, also for our young people as well. Thank you so much. We do have an award to wish tonight, and you probably noticed there's a person in this room that we really wished could be here, but we want to honor him nonetheless. It is my pleasure to share some stats about our 2021 AAU Gussie Crawford Lifetime Award winner. He was born in Wichita, Kansas. Barry Sanders attended Wichita North High School, where he rushed 1,417 yards in the final 7 games of the season and earned him the All-State honors. He played for Oklahoma State University from '86 to '88. He led the nation in yards per kickoff return at 31.6 in 1987. While also rushing for over 600 yards and scoring 8 touchdowns, including 4 on special teams. In 1988, Sanders led the nation by averaging 7.6 yards per carry and over 200 yards per game, including rushing over 300 yards in 4 games. At the 1988 Holiday Bowl, Barry Sanders ran for 222 yards and scored 5 touchdowns in 3 quarters. When added to his original rushing total with the NCAA, Sanders recorded 2,850 rushing yards off a workload of 373 attempts and 42 rushing touchdowns, and in total, 44 touchdowns. And if that's a lot of math for you, just know that it earned him the 1988 Heisman Trophy. He was the best of the best. After a stellar amateur career, because we are honoring that today, Sanders joined the NFL draft. In his senior season, he was the 3rd overall pick in the 1989 draft and landed right here in Detroit for the Detroit Lions. Sanders retired from professional football in 1999. His legacy includes 15,269 rushing yards, the highest total rushing yards ever by an NFL player in a 10-year span. 2,921 receiving yards and 109 touchdowns, 99 rushing and 10 receiving. Definitely one of the absolute greatest. But not the GOAT. Among a number of his professional achievements, Barry Sanders is in the Pro Football Hall of Fame for a running back and also won an ESPY Award in 1995. Let's hear a little bit from Barry Sanders.
He never comes at you. He's always running away from you. He creates hard angles to pursue him. That's what makes him that much more elusive. Barry is somebody that you hope you tackle him. You know, it's not like you're gonna go out and say, I'm gonna put a good lick on him. You just hope you get him down.
Barry could run behind the Rockettes and gain 2,000 yards if he wanted to. That's how good. It didn't matter who blocked for him. He'd find a way because he had his own running style.
It was unique, but to me, it was the only way I'd ever run. I was always the smallest guy or the near smallest guy out there. I was never going to be a guy out running over everyone, dipping my shoulder. There's always a design play, just being able to run that way. Run, follow what you see and follow your eyes.
Nobody's perfect. You miss blocks. We would tell all the young guys, whoever was in there, just go to the next level. They're not going to tackle them one-on-one. If the play's supposed to hit to the right side and you see the secondary flowing to the left, obviously he's cut back.
Barry up the middle, 35, cuts to the right, 30, cuts it back over the middle, 20, to the 15, to the 10, to the 5, touchdown!
Each week I would take time to go in and watch the offensive film because I wanted to watch Barry Sanders as a fan. I didn't want to watch him as a teammate. I didn't want to watch him as a defensive player. I just wanted to watch him as a fan. And that's, I think, the biggest compliment I can pay any player.
Barry's my new idol now. I love the way the guy runs. When I grow up, I want to run just like him.
Here's back to throw. He hands off to Sanders. Gets outside to the 30. 25, 20. Spins to the 15, 10, 5. Touchdown! Barry Sanders. A 35-yard run, and it was brilliant. What a sight.
It's definitely fun to look back at all those highlights, isn't it? Well, I would like to bring up Rusty Buchanan, our president and CEO of the AAU, to present the 2021 AAU Gussie Crawford Lifetime Achievement Award to Barry Sanders.
You know, it's easy for anybody that's a football fan to look back and say what he's done on the field. But also I think Barry can be remembered for the things he's done off the field. You ask anybody in Detroit and they'll tell you what a great guy he is. He's always willing to step up. He's donated a percentage of his salary to charities. He's been involved in all these things. He's a true humanitarian. And I think that's very special as well. And I know a lot of work the Detroit Athletic Club and our committee went to come up with this, but it's my privilege to now present this year's Gussie Crawford Lifetime Achievement Award to Barry Sanders. Congratulations. Obviously, Barry could not be here this evening, but I believe we do have a video of Barry and his acceptance.
Hello, everyone. It's Barry Sanders. So sorry I could not be there with you, but thank you so much, DAC, for this Gussie Crawford Lifetime Achievement Award. This award is made even more special by some of the great recipients that have received it, personalities like Babe Diedrichson, Muhammad Ali, Jesse Owens, and many others. Let me take this opportunity just to point out also some of the great history that's there at the DAC and the history that they have with the city of Detroit. For me, it's a great honor to receive an award from an organization that has such great roots in the city of Detroit and that has been with the city through so much. You know, on occasions like this, I can't help but remember competing as a young AAU track and field athlete, and all those lessons and experiences that came along with competing in that environment. So in closing, I would try to continue to live up to the qualities that this award values in its recipients. So thanks again, everyone. Have a great time.
Well, all right. This is just about concluding our evening tonight. So another round of applause to Barry Sanders for all that he's accomplished. And of course, another round of applause for our special guest tonight, Carl Lewis. It has been my honor to serve as your mistress of ceremonies. I want to thank Jack for inviting me. He's on the board, and just want to thank you for inviting me to be the MC, to learn so much more about AAU, the history with the DAC, and to meet one of my idols as well, Carl Lewis. It has been a tremendous evening. And at this time, I'm going to turn the mic over to Kristen Ritter, who is also the 2020 DAC president.
I'll be very brief. Thank you very much for being here and honoring our wonderful athletes. And I also thank you very much, Rhonda. You're a terrific mistress of ceremonies. Thank you. We definitely value our relationship with AAU, the DAC does, and Rusty took the lead in a very challenging time last year, and he has done an amazing job leading and keeping the momentum. And so I just want to say thank you, Mr. Buchanan, for being here and what you're doing for AAU. And thank you, Mr. Lewis, and also congratulations to Barry Sanders. Without further ado, I just want to say thank you to all of our sponsors. As Mr. Devine said, we can't do this without all of you. We have, I just want to say thank you very much to Meyer, Ally Financial, SG Cares, Ideal Group for Insurance, Michigan AAU, and the James Group. Thank you very much. And have a wonderful evening. Please enjoy the bar while it's open, and we appreciate you being here this evening.